Ho. That's not it. Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas, everyone. Hey, what's up, everybody? Commander Radix here, bringing you another video. How you doing? As you can see, I am filled with Christmas cheer. Even though I know this video is coming out, will be December 23rd, my time. So, you know, Christmas Adam. For most of you, it'll be the 22nd, though. Oh, 22, like Primus Prime 22. Although I am recording this video on December 1st, so, Christmas seems far away for me. But here I am pretending that I'm being timely and I'm recording a video, near Christmas. Welcome back to another episode of Community Comments. If you don't know, Community Comments is my series that is supposed to be monthly. The last episode was in June, but my series where I respond to your comments. So if you have any questions for me about anything, please leave them in the comments below. I will answer them on the next episode of Community Comments, whenever that might be. Thankfully, my time management skills are a little bit better now, so hopefully it will actually be next month and not next half year. My sense of time is off because, you know, this is supposed to be a monthly series, but here I am recording it half a year later, the next episode, and also I'm recording way too early because this is coming out December 23rd and I am in December 1st. So I am sort of in a I am in between time right now. Or you could say I'm a slowpoke, you know, whatever you want to say. But without any further ado, without any, Orbital Bacon calls it, without any more grandstanding and hot dogging, let's take a look at your comments from the last episode of Community Comments, which I will respond to today. Oh, by the way, that last Community Comments video was about how I wasn't going to see Rise of the Beast. And I got a lot of comments calling me racist for not watching Rise of the Beast. Please understand that I am the least racist person there is. It is ridiculous to me, the idea that if someone doesn't watch a movie that you haven't even seen yet, because the movie hadn't even been out yet, but you are going to simp for that movie so much that you call them racist. I think someone in that situation is far gone. But let's start this off with Sensavision 1464. I can't believe you are Japan. Well, Sensavision 1464, I am Japan from Italia. Mr. Freaky Zero says, how do you feel about the new Transformers comic universe that starts with Void Rivals? So not IDW, I think this is Skybound, is that the right company name? Has started a new Hasbro universe that includes Void Rivals, Transformers, and G.I. Joe. And you guys know I'm a big fan of Hasbro universe, especially the IDW Hasbro universe. And that I believe that those franchises should work together in a shared universe. I've made several videos on the subject before. But as I said in my previous video, because of the metafiction of Transformers is gone, which is kind of the only unique aspect Transformers in the Hasbro universe had to it, and now it's just kind of become any other sci-fi franchise that reboots every 5 years, instead of having an overarching connected story that connects these reboots. Frankly, I haven't been interested in the Transformers comics. I've heard good things. I've heard mixed things about them, to be honest, but yeah, I haven't read them yet, and frankly, I don't really plan on reading them. Matthew Flynn, the Gladiator of 6787, asks Radix, how do I order the Fallen's history? Do I separate it by the universe he is in, or do I composite it into one linear timeline regardless of universe? Okay, good question. There was I believe it was a Hasbro Q&A a long time ago, where Hasbro came out with a canonical statement that the 13 and multiversal singularities in general do not experience time in the way we do and the way all the other characters in the Transformers franchise do. They experience time in a bit of a different way, and sometimes they can be in more than one places at once, sometimes they can be in one event, but that event goes differently a few times and they experience all the different ways those events happen at once. The biggest example of this is Revenge of the Fallen, the battle, what's the name? Operation Devastator's Balls? Operation Firestorm. Operation Firestorm goes a bit differently, When you're looking at the Revenge of the Fallen movie, the Revenge of the Fallen video games, the Revenge of the Fallen novelizations, especially the video games where there's 2 different endings. And all of those endings are technically canonical. But for us reading the content, right, we kind of have to put it in some sort of order in order for our brains to understand it. So understand that when we put the Fallen's story in order, it's not exactly what happened. It's just a way that we can kind of understand it, but that doesn't mean that it literally happened in a linear order. I used to have notes on like the Fallen's chronological order, but I don't think I have them anymore. How I tend to look at it is I tend to follow the movie timeline, the Bayverse timeline, with his rebellion, him being sort of locked away in his sarcophagus / other universe, right? Ultimately, he's freed by Megatron, I think it was. My memory's very hazy on this. And then you basically have the events of the movie timeline, the Revenge of the Fallen film, and then at the end of Revenge of the Fallen, in some universes, he gets killed, right? Some universes we see on screen his spark crushed before our eyes after Optimus Prime takes his face. But other universes end with him, like, sort of being thrown into a black hole or something, I think. Sort of banished to another dimension. And this is going to be the piece that ties everything together, the I Can Read's I Am Optimus Prime book. This is the piece of the puzzle that keeps the Fallen story together, where Optimus Prime throws... What the book says is, in the end, Optimus Prime sends the Fallen screaming into space. The sun is saved. But if you look at the art, it's clearly some sort of portal. That's not how throwing people into space works. Now this, I think we can interpret to tie it in. Obviously, I don't think it was intentional by the author's part, but we know that the Fallen dies in most of the Revenge of the Fallen timelines, except this one where he gets banished into space, another dimension. When we see the Fallen chronologically by release date before Revenge of the Fallen, we see him in Dreamwave's The War Within comic series, right? Where he pops out of a dimensional thing. There's a space bridge accident where Optimus Prime and Megatron get sort of lost, and then the Fallen comes into that universe. What I tend to look at, how I tend to look at it is the Fallen is coming into the multiverse after being locked away from Revenge of the Fallen in the timeline where he got kicked out. So he's experiencing all of the different Revenge of the Fallens is at once. That's the one where he survives, and the one where the universe doesn't eventually get destroyed. So that's where we're following up with. And then he's basically retroactively going into the Dreamwave universe. Now, the Fallen kind of goes through a few things in the Dreamwave universe, but the main arc about the Fallen in Dreamwave isn't really resolved because Dreamwave collapses. But we do see in 2014 in the Japanese G1 cartoon universe, we have Train Wars where the Fallen pops up back again. And this is a piece of material, piece of fiction that's published after Revenge of the Fallen. How does the Fallen look in Train Wars? He looks a lot more similar to his Dreamwave appearance than his Revenge of the Fallen appearance. And I know appearances are kind of a superficial thing when dealing with multiversal timelines, but I think that's enough for me to say, okay, this is going on at some point after the Dreamwave universe. He's coming into the Japanese G1 cartoon universe. Now, he gets blown up in the Japanese cartoon universe. He's dead, but we're also starting to enter the time period where the dark spark has crossed through the membrane between the Union cluster and the rest of the multiverse, which means Megatronus's, the Fallen's consciousness, his multiversal singularity-ness, is merged back with his aligned counterpart. So the Megatronus we see in Robots in Disguise is technically a multiversal singular Fallen. And then, of course, it all gets tied in together once we reach the Shroud. We see him witnessing Nexus Prime breaking apart the multiverse. Those are his main appearances. Now, yes, there's a Megatronus in the IDW comics, but that is not a multiversal singular Megatronus Fallen, right? So that's generally the timeline I have for the Fallen. Noah Cove 79 says, what are the origin of the G1 Junkion style as a species, especially American or Japanese cartoon continuity? By the way, I have a series where I answered Transformers lore questions. That's called Transformers More Lore. Community comments is less about Transformers, or at least it shouldn't be so much about Transformers as it should be about the process behind this channel. At TFEES says, I'm going to ask you a list of questions, so get ready. Number 1. Is your interest in Transformers declining so much that you might not be a fan of the franchise? Well, that leads to the question, what is a fan, right? Do I like Transformers? Yeah. You know, let me put my Megatron up here. Okay, here we have Megatron riding his trusty steed. So I don't think I would say I'm not a Transformers fan. However, on the internet, people take the term Transformers fan to mean something. Like, if I say I'm a Transformers fan, I don't like anything that's come out since 2015 though, people will say, oh, then you're not a Transformers fan, right? Online at least. Check out my old Commander's Cabin video, Fearsome Fandom, for why I don't like how the internet defines fandom, or being a fan. I would say that I am a bit of a Transformers fan. Number 2, is the G1 Japanese continuity over? Did it end with that story of Unicron taking over Lio Convoy's body? You know, now that you mention it, I don't remember seeing any new content coming out for the Japanese G1 cartoon universe, although it's very hard to keep up with it because, like, you know, you never know when a new manga might drop inside the package of a Transformers toy somewhere that nobody notices. I'll consider the feminism of that it never ends, right? But that was a solid ending to the Japanese G1 cartoon universe. Number 3, how do you balance a job, a girlfriend, and a YouTube channel? Well, as the upload schedule of this channel the past few years has suggested, not very well. Although recently, it's been balanced very well. A few things go into that. Number 1, I've recently started using Google Calendar to carve out pieces of time in my schedule that I can consistently work on, so that I consistently am working on YouTube at least around an hour a day. So my routine is usually after my morning routine is done, and I've prepared my lunch for the day, and I've packed up for work, then I sit down and start recording or editing videos. So it's very early in the morning right now. It looks like the sun is just beginning to rise. So that's how I manage the YouTube side of things. Work is work. Work is a nightmare. And then as for my girlfriend, you know, we're kind of long distance. She lives in Nagoya in Aichi Prefecture. I live in Okinawa Prefecture. There is a great distance between us. We aim to meet around once a month, and then we're trying to do a call at least once a week. So that doesn't actually occupy too much time. Number 4, why wouldn't Japan make a new Transformers series? I don't know if we wouldn't, right? Why wouldn't Japan make a new Transformers series? Because it hasn't been ordered? It hasn't. Well, nobody's make. You have to understand that the Transformers fan base in Japan is minuscule. There are way more Transformers fans in America than there are in Japan. Why aren't they making a Kamen Rider movie in America? Number 5, without spoiling anything, does the 3H Comics and Fun Publication stuff consider its own continuity? Not really, no, very rarely. But it depends. Like, with the Wings universe is its own continuity, and that is produced by Fun Publications, or was produced by Fun Publications. You have to understand that 3H and Fun Publications published a lot of stuff in different continuities. But like Transformers Universe from 3H Comics is canon to the Transformers Multiverse of 1984 to 2015. Number 6, any advice before I read the 3H and Fun Publications comics? Be familiar with the Transformers Marvel comics. Be familiar with the G1 and Beast Wars and Beast Machines cartoons. Those are probably the most important things to know. Also remember when the 3H stuff is coming out, that's when you have Dreamwave Unicron Trilogy stuff and Dreamwave War Within stuff coming out, so it's going to reference some stuff about that, at least through character cameos. And also be prepared for an unsatisfying ending, because both 3H and Fun Publications kind of abruptly end. Number 7, is there any anime where the English dub is better than the Japanese? And Liquid Steel 04 says Ghost Stories. Ghost Stories is a high up on the list of where the English dub is better than the Japanese. I also tend to recommend Code Geass and Hellsing Ultimate. I also really like the English dub of those shows. The Japanese is strong in those shows as well, but the English I feel is very strong for an English dub. If you know anyone who wants to practice voice acting, will you please direct them to me, please? Okay. Commander Radix, you're cool. My cool? And then he asked, do you still consider yourself a fan of Transformers since you don't engage with any of the new content that Transformers puts out? Yeah, I think I've answered that by now. And then, do you think we'll ever get a Transformers and Gundam crossover? Maybe. Yeah, maybe. That's the best way. All I have to say to that. Maybe. It's possible. Gundam is infinitely more popular than Transformers, at least here in Japan. Transformers is kind of relatively unknown over here. So that's like... Gundam would really have to be bending down and saying, okay, Transformers, you can come play with us, to do a crossover. Maybe not, now that I think about it, but maybe one day. Uh-oh, here Radix is recording a week later, because there were some questions that I realized that I missed because I was looking at it on my YouTube Studio, and when you like a comment on YouTube Studio, then it doesn't show it to you again unless you hit things I haven't responded to yet. Long story short, there are a few good questions that I skipped. I'm going to answer them here in this video recorded 5 years later. Elton Tan 4340 says, so is the Uralic people more a linguistic group than an ethnic one like Turkic and Austronesian? Are those a fair comparison? Would be interested to see you covered these topics. So, right, the Uralic is a linguistic group, and so is Turkic and Austronesian, right? Those are linguistic groups, and within the speakers of those languages, there's going to be genetic differences. But Uralic especially, you know, on the eastern Klein, on the eastern edge of the Uralic-speaking world, you're going to have people that are more genetically what we could consider Northeast Asian. While on the western end of the spectrum, you're going to get people whose genetics are basically indistinguishable from the other European, Indo-European peoples. So the genetic variety in the Uralic language group is high. Now, to be fair, the same can be said about the Turkic group, right? So on the far east, you're going to have Turkic-speaking people who are more genetically what we could call Northeast Asian, East Asian. Then on the western end, you have people who are genetically more closely related to the Arabs and to the Persians, and to Greeks even. And as for Austronesian language speakers, you're going to have people who are speaking the language that are more East Asian in genetic origin, all the way to people who are more Melanesian, for example. But yes, I do want to do dedicated videos on the Uralic expansion, on the Turkic expansion, and the Austronesian expansion. Those are all expansions that I have a lot of interest in. By the way, Radix, I know you don't want to make videos that take too much time to research. Are there any other history or religion videos you're planning currently? Will you cover other Asian religion too? That I'm planning... Well, the Santa Claus video was kind of a video on religion, right? It was kind of an Orthodox Christian video. As for covering other Asian religions, I have a lot of interest in Buddhism, I have a lot of interest in Taoism, and I want to get more into research into Confucianism, Shinto, of course, as well. Those are the religions I have the most interest in East Asia. Which, to be fair, that's basically the bulk of what most spirituality in East Asia is built off of. Also, okay, so I live in Okinawa. Okinawa has a rich history, it has its own religious traditions, there's a lot to be said about Okinawa, and I'm very knowledgeable about Okinawa. There's a problem about me making videos on Okinawa, though. There aren't many videos on Okinawa. It's kind of a niche subject. I live in Okinawa. I also work with a lot of foreigners who are researchers and really into Okinawa. My fear is if I make too much videos on Okinawa, they will find those videos because they are constantly combing the internet for information about Okinawa. So I tried to avoid talking about Okinawa. For example, there are 2 videos on Okinawa that I've done on this channel. One on the history of Okinawa, just in general, which I'm not really happy with. I do want to make a better version. And then there's one on the origin of the Shisa, which is an Okinawan mythological creature. Those videos aren't unlisted because I don't want people finding those because of how closely I work with Okinawan researchers on Okinawa in English. But yeah, there's a lot I could do on that, a lot of filming on site I could do since I live in Okinawa, but I'm concerned about getting doxxed. Noah Cove 79 says, could you perhaps do a video on the various types and origin of Oni? Sure, whenever that might be. I don't know when that would come out, but that is a topic that I would be interested in covering. AG Designs 878, when you do your next Q&A in 4 years? Yeah. What are your thoughts on Evangelion? I have watched the OG Evangelion. I liked it. You know, to be honest, I wasn't blown away, like how some people seem to be blown away by Evangelion. I should also add that I watched Evangelion before I had really done research into, like, Christianity, so I didn't really know much about Christianity before watching Evangelion. So I'm sure there's a lot of symbolism I missed. I think I should rewatch Evangelion at some point. Okay, and that's all the questions for this episode of Community Comments. A lot of Transformers-focused comments. Please remember that Transformers lore questions should be asked in the comment section of the Transformers More lore series. I have 2 different Q&As, one for Transformers, one for general stuff. Community comments is for the general stuff. Or if you have history questions or things like that, you could ask that as well. But yeah, that wraps up this episode of Community Comments. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, please put it in the comments below and I will answer them in the next episode, because I like talking with you. It's one thing to make videos about subjects, but then if I don't really talk to the audience, you know, I don't feel that connection. So let's feel that connection. Let's converge the universes. But yeah, that's going to wrap up this video. I hope you all have a very Merry Christmas. I have a Christmas special planned coming up on Christmas, so be hyped for that. We're going to be reading a little bit of a ancient text, as it were. Follow me on social media, all the links are in the description. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day, ladies and gentlemen.